To get started with jQuery, the first thing you want to do is go to jQuery.com and grab the latest version of the script. Now, if you're a Visual Studio developer and you're used to just creating projects there, then ASP.NET Web Forms or ASP.NET MVC have built-in jQuery support. So you'll see it show up in a scripts folder and you're kind of ready to go. But I always like to go here regardless to make sure I have the latest version of the script. The nice thing is, as they come out with new versions, the core features we're going to cover are going to be backward compatible, so it works great there. Now the current version at the time of doing the video is 1.4.4, you can see, but that'll certainly change. So make sure to go out and grab that latest version. Now there's two versions you can get out of the box. The first is the production version. Let me click on that and show you. This is the minified version. Minified meaning it's compressed and unnecessary space has been stripped out and those types of things to keep it very small. And that's why it's only about 26 KB here. Now the development version would be, if you want to actually step into any of this code and debug some things, have a pretty formatted version of the script. You'd want to get that. Now you'll see size-wise, it's definitely quite a bit larger, 179 kilobytes. So be aware of that. That's definitely something you'll want to take into account. I normally just go with the production version, but there is another version of the script I use, which I'm going to talk about next. So that's the first thing. Now that other version of the script I use is at a different site. If you go to this site, append2.com, and go to Community jQuery VS Doc, then you can grab a Visual Studio documentation file that's specific to jQuery. Now what this does is, if I click on it, you'll see they've actually gone through and all the jQuery APIs, all the functions have been documented, and it looks kind of like the C# / comment you would do to enable XML comments for documentation purposes. So in this example, you'll notice that this is the core jQuery object here. This and this are equivalent. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but if we scroll down, you'll notice they have all these different functions you can call. Lots of different things, events, all of that, and it's all documented for you. Now, all you have to do is grab this file, save it with the .js extension, and put it in the same folder as your jQuery file. Visual Studio 2010 will automatically pick that up, and now as you type, you're going to get IntelliSense, which is awesome because you don't have to run off to the documentation every single time to look up what parameters you pass and things like that. Because you don't get a lot otherwise if you don't use this file. You do get some IntelliSense, but it's very minimal. Now, if you scroll on down in this, you'll see kind of some examples of what it looks like. So as you type this particular jQuery selector, which we'll talk about this in the next module, but this is the type of IntelliSense you'd get. Or here's the IntelliSense for some of the different members of the jQuery object you can call into, and here's the help you'll get. So you'll see it's very nice. Microsoft's Scott Guthrie also has a nice post. It's oriented towards 2008 of Visual Studio, but it's still applicable. And he walks through how you just drop that file in next to your jQuery file. In your script tag, you just reference the normal jQuery file, but from then on, you'll start to get IntelliSense like you see here. And so he has a nice little post if you're interested that you can read more about that. So what I'm going to do is just, let's go ahead and grab a production script. Now I'm in Chrome, so it actually shows it to me. So I'm just going to select all that and copy it into the clipboard. We'll run off to Notepad. And then I'm just going to save that right to my desktop because I have another file we're going to look at. And we'll save that as jQuery 144.js. You can see right there. Alright, so now we have the script file. Now I'm saving it to the desktop because I already have a web page there. But in this case, you would just save it to your scripts folder, of course, in your web application. Now from here, I'm going to run down, and I have a very simple web page, as I mentioned, also in the same location as the jQuery file. And from here, you just need to reference the script as you would a typical JavaScript file. So we're going to add the type, and we'll add the source is jQuery 1.4.4.js. And then, of course, with script tags, especially if you're new to this, you always, you can't put a shortcut, close. You always have to put the full closing tag. And that would be it. Now, I'm not going to run this one because it doesn't do anything at this point. We would just see my jQuery enabled page. But it would have jQuery available to us to use now, and we could start doing some pretty cool stuff. So that's all you have to do to get started with jQuery, getting it added to your sites. As you can see, going back to the slides here, we have our jQuery 144, and this is the official, this min is the official name that the jQuery site will give the file. But you can call it whatever you want as long as you reference it. Now that's only one way, though, to reference a jQuery file within your web applications. I'm going to show you another one in just a moment. So before moving on to that, though, as I mentioned, definitely recommend go grab that documentation file from append2.com/community jQuery VS Doc if you're using Visual Studio. If you're not, Visual Studio is not the only game in town for web development. So you can certainly go to Eclipse, and there's some plugins related to this as well. A really nice one I've played with is Aptana Studio. They do a Ruby on Rails type thing, plus they have just a more web-based studio that gives you nice IntelliSense, tells you what browsers are supported for different features you might do with CSS, but it also has this IntelliSense to help it, make it easier to work with jQuery. So those are some other options.